Welcome back to the deep dive. I have to admit, I uh, I hesitated a little bit before we hit record today.
Oh,
Yeah, I mean, usually we are dissecting the latest tech trends or, productivity hacks, some dense geopolitical history,
the serious
the
stuff.
serious stuff, exactly.
Uh,
And today we are talking about fairy tales.
yeah.
And a part of me, the serious adult part, was whispering, "Really, are we doing this? Isn't this a bit frivolous?"
It's so funny you use that word frivolous because that voice in your head, that serious adult checking his watch and worrying about the
Yeah.
utility of this conversation,
Yeah.
that is exactly the target of the text we're unpacking today.
Yeah, the source materials is called The Wisdom of Silliness, and it threw a curveball at me right in the first paragraph.
Yep.
It quotes this paradox that honestly stopped me cold.
I know the one you mean.
Someday, you will be old enough to start reading fairy tales again.
It's a jarring thought, isn't it? We usually see life as this straight line. You start with picture books, you graduate to textbooks and newspapers and tax forms, and you never look back.
Right.
But this suggests that growing up isn't a line at all. It's a circle.
But, okay, let's be real for a second. That sounds lovely on a Hallmark card, but does it actually hold up?
Hmm.
We live in a world that is, aggressively serious.
Mm.
Look at the headlines. We're dealing with economic instability, wars, elections, climate shifts. If I tell someone, hey, ignore the news, go read Hans Christian Andersen, I sound like I've lost my mind.
Or we sound like someone who understands the difference between urgency and importance. Look, the argument here isn't that you should ignore reality.
Okay.
The argument is that our definition of reality has become incredibly narrow. We've decided that only the things we can measure or sell or vote on are real.
And everything else.
Wonder, imagination, mystery, that's all just kid stuff.
So the mission today is basically to defend the kid stuff.
The mission is to prove that kid stuff is actually the most sophisticated tool we have for survival. We're exploring this idea that innocence is not ignorance, it's a capability.
Okay, I'm willing to be convinced. But let's start with the context the source lays out, because this was the first point where I felt a little attacked.
I can see that.
The text argues that modern people, right now, are huge hypocrites. That we laugh at magic in stories, yet we literally live inside a magical reality.
We do, and we're completely bored by it.
That's the picker.
Hmm.
The source uses this imagery of our daily lives. We have glowing numbers that appear and disappear on screens that dictate whether we can eat or where we can live.
That's money.
That's money. We carry these glass mirrors in our pockets. I tap a piece of glass, and 30 minutes later, a stranger appears at my door with a hot meal.
Right.
Or I tap it again, and a car appears to take me across the city. Or I tap it again, and I can summon the police.
If you described that exact sequence of events to a peasant from the 14th century, they wouldn't say, oh, that's just high-level supply chain logistics.
No, of course not.
They would say, that is sorcery.
But see, I want to push back on that a little bit. Because I know it's not magic. I know there's code and GPS satellites and, a guy named Dave driving a Toyota. It's explained. It's engineering. So isn't the awe gone because we know how the trick is done?
Do you, though? I mean, really, if I put a pile of silicon and copper in front of you and said, make this sum in a pizza, could you do it?
No, absolutely not. Not a chance.
Exactly. For 99% of us, the functionality of our world is indistinguishable from magic. We don't know how it works. We just know that if we perform the ritual, tap the glass, enter the passcode, reality obeys us.
Okay, when you put it that way, it does sound like a spell.
And that's the connection. The source argues that magic and technology, they share the exact same goal. It's not about understanding the world. It's about bending reality to human will.
We just want to snap our fingers and have the obstacle removed.
Precisely. Which brings us to this massive concept the text calls the Great Philosophical Shift. And honestly, this is where I struggled a bit. It felt like we jumped from smartphones are cool to the nature of the human soul really fast.
It's a big jump.
Yeah. Can we slow this down?
Of course. It is a heavy pivot. So think of it like this. Imagine you're a sailor in the ancient world. You're navigating by the stars.
All right.
You can't move the stars. You can't negotiate with the ocean. You have to adjust your sails in your course to fit the reality around you.
Right. I am small. The ocean is big. I have to conform.
Precisely. The question that defined pre-modern civilizations was, how should the soul conform to reality? Reality was this fixed, mysterious thing, and the job of a human was to fit into it properly, to be humble, to be in harmony.
In the shift.
The modern world just flipped the script. Now, the question is, how can reality be forced to obey us? We don't navigate by stars anymore. We blast tunnels through mountains. We don't accept the dark. We invent electric lights to kill.
So we stopped trying to change ourselves to fit the world and started hacking the world to fit us.
Yes. And here's why that matters for fairy tales. Fairy tales come from that old world. They are not stories about control. They are stories about surrender, about mystery, about encountering things you cannot hack.
That actually explains a lot of the frustration I feel when I read old stories sometimes. I'm always thinking, why doesn't the hero just use a better weapon? Or, why don't they just avoid the woods?
You're looking for the efficiency hack.
Exactly. I'm bringing a control mindset to a meaning story. And this is where we have to talk about the difference between a fact and a truth, because we are obsessed with facts.
Right. The source used the frog prince example here. The witch turns the prince into a frog. And my brain immediately goes, biologically impossible, conservation of mass, where did the extra bone density go?
You're fact-checking a metaphor, but the story isn't trying to teach you biology. It's not a lesson in genetics.
It's a lesson in moral corruption.
It's saying, this is what arrogance looks like.
Yes. When a human soul becomes arrogant and cold, it becomes slimy and small. That is a truth, even if the biology is not a fact.
Or the other image, the palace in the clouds. I'm looking at it asking about structural engineering and plumbing.
And if you ask about the plumbing, you miss the vision. A palace in the clouds is purity of heart made visible, is an external picture of an internal state.
So the source is arguing that we have become so good at analyzing the bricks and mortar of the world, the atoms, the data, that we've forgotten how to read the meaning.
We see the text, but we've lost the subtext.
It feels like we've traded wisdom for information. We have all the data in the world, but we don't know what any of it means.
And that void, that lack of meaning is where the danger lies. This is where the text gets into the power of words. It warns us not to underestimate spells.
This part felt very relevant to me because, again, we think of spells as, abracadabra. But the source argues that we are ruled by spells every single day.
Think about a law. A law is it's just ink on a page. Just words. But if a judge speaks a sentence, reality changes. A person goes to prison. Freedom is just taken away.
Or a declaration of war. A few people sign a piece of paper, and suddenly thousands of people are moving across the ocean and starting to shoot at each other. The physical world shifts because of words.
Exactly. Words can enchant a society into greatness, or they can destroy it. The source talks about how polite policies can empty savings accounts and ruin lives without anyone ever drawing a sword. That is a kind of dark magic.
So when we say we believe in fairy tales, we aren't saying, I believe there is a dragon in the sewer.
No.
We're saying, I believe that stories have power.
We're saying we believe that imagination reveals truths that facts just cannot carry. Let's look at the mermaid example from the text. This is the classic story, right? A magical creature giving up immortality for human love.
Which, again, to the cynical modern brain, sounds like a bad deal. You think, keep the immortality. Compounding interest alone would make you rich.
The ROI on immortality is infinite.
It is. But the believer looks at that story and sees something else. The truth isn't that mermaids exist. The truth is that love is so valuable, so transcendent, that it is worth trading eternity for.
It's measuring value in a completely different currency.
Yes. And if you lose the ability to see that, if you look at the ocean and just see H2O and salt and potential shipping lanes, you've lost something essential. You've disenchanted the world.
That word disenchanted, it feels like burnout. It feels like that gray filter that settles over everything when you're just grinding through the week.
That's the utility trap. The source calls this the disease of our time. This obsession with return on investment.
What do I get out of this?
Is this efficient? Is this productive? If I read this book, will it make me smarter? If I take a walk, is it good cardio? We have a really hard time just doing things.
It's guilt. I feel guilty if I'm doing something that doesn't have a clear output. Like I can't just sit and stare out the window.
Yeah.
I have to be listening to a podcast while I stare out the windows, so I'm learning.
Which is pretty ironic considering we're on a podcast right now. But you're right. We treat our time like a factory floor. Every minute has to produce a widget.
Yeah.
And the text argues that this mindset is fatal to the soul because true delight, true wonder, it's useless.
Useless.
In the utilitarian sense, yes. Jumping in a puddle has no ROI.
Hmm.
Singing in the shower produces no commodity. But that uselessness is exactly why it's freeing. It steps outside the economy of exchange.
This connects to the distinction the source draws between entertainment and art. I thought this was a really helpful way to categorize
It
things.
is. The text defines entertainment as distraction. It's the sugar rush. You scroll social media, you watch a reality show. It occupies your mind, but it doesn't change you.
It leaves you exactly where I found you.
Just with less time. And art. Art deepens, and fairy tales, in their true form, they're art. They are these deep, mythic structures that quietly reshape how you see the world. They stick with you.
It's interesting you mentioned that useless play leads to depth. Because even in the hardcore, serious world of business and tech, isn't it true that most breakthroughs come from people just messing around?
Oh, absolutely. The text makes this exact point. Every great invention started as silliness. You don't invent the airplane by analyzing the facts of gravity. Gravity says stay on the ground.
Right.
You invent the airplane by asking a fairy tale question. What if I could fly like a bird?
So the imagination that sees dragons is the same imagination that builds spaceships.
You can't separate them. If you kill the capacity for fantasy, if you mock a child for playing what if, you are cutting off the root of human progress. We think we're being serious adults by crushing that instinct, but we're actually just lobotomizing ourselves.
That is a scary thought.
Yeah.
We are making ourselves stupider by trying to be so serious.
Stupider and frankly meaner.
Meaner.
This is the moral dimension. Fairy tales train our moral intuition. Think about the archetypes. The wicked stepmother, the tyrant king. These characters usually have a specific flaw. They see the world as ugly, or they see people as things to be used.
Right, they're cynics.
And the child reading that story learns a profound lesson before they even have the vocabulary for it. Seeing the world as ugly makes you ugly.
That's powerful. It's not just be nice. It's be careful how you view the world because it will shape who you become.
Exactly. It implants a moral structure, and it's not always clean, right? Fairy tales can be violent and weird, but they force you, the reader, to ask, was that right? Was that justice? Should the hero have tricked the giant?
It's a simulation. You're practicing moral judgment in a safe environment.
Whereas today, we tend to outsource our morality to rules. Is it legal? Is it against company policy? We stop asking, is it good? Fairy tales force us to ask about the good.
So, okay, we've established that we need this. We need the wonder, the moral training, the break from the factory floor mindset. But how? Because the source outlines this life cycle of wonder that feels just tragically accurate.
It's the tragedy of the middle. You start as a child. You know true delight. You don't need a reason to climb a tree. The climbing is the point.
Then you hit the middle, adulthood.
The middle age, the age of utility. We become embarrassed by wonder. We worry about how we look. We worry about the cost. We put away childish things, but we throw out the baby with the bathwater.
And the source says the elderly sometimes find their way back.
Often, yes. There's a return to simplicity at the end of life. You stop caring what the neighbors think. You start noticing the birds again. But the argument of this whole deep dive is, why wait?
Right. Why spend 40 years being miserable just to rediscover joy at 80?
Exactly. The goal is to recover the child while you are an adult. This is what we mean by integration.
Integration. That's a key word because I don't want to tell our listeners, quit your job and go live in a treehouse.
No, please pay your taxes. But can you pay your taxes and keep a part of your soul alive that knows there is more to life than money?
Can you use the smartphone to summon the car, but still look out the window and marvel at the fact that you're moving?
That's it. It's recovering the freedom to be silly, to sing without performing, to imagine without embarrassment.
That singing without performing one hits home. I feel like everything we do now was a performance. We sing for karaoke, we cook for Instagram. The idea of doing something just for the sensation of doing it feels rebellious.
It is rebellious. In an economy of attention and utility, joy is an act of resistance.
The source has this lovely thought that maybe children exist to remind adults what we are forgetting. Like they're little ambassadors from the land of wonder.
And usually our response to the ambassador is, be quiet, I'm on a conference call.
We shush the messenger.
But if we listen, really listen, they are showing us the way back. They're showing us that the world is huge and mysterious and responsive to our imagination.
So let's try to tie this all together for someone listening who might be stuck in traffic right now, feeling the weight of that serious world. What is the takeaway?
The takeaway is that innocence is not ignorance. Choosing to see the world with wonder doesn't mean you don't know that bad things happen. It doesn't mean you ignore the wars or the bills.
It's not denial.
No. It's defiance. It is refusing to let the bad things define the horizon of what is possible. It's keeping the what if alive.
But if there is more to this, what if love wins?
What if the small and weak can overcome the big and strong? That is the core promise of the fairy tale. And without that hope, without that imaginative capacity, the world becomes a very small, very rigid, and very dead place.
It becomes a cage of facts.
And we were meant for more than a cage.
Well, I have to say, I feel a little less embarrassed about that copy of Grimm's Fairy Tales on my bookshelf now.
You should move it to the coffee table. Let people see it.
Maybe I will. But before we sign off, I want to leave you, the listener, with a challenge. And it's a weird one. We talked about the return on investment of joy. So here is my question. If you stopped worrying about the ROI, what is one useless thing you would go do right now? Just because it makes the world feel a little bit magical again.
That is a dangerous question.
Go answer it. Go be a little bit silly. Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive. We'll see you next time.